Welcome to episode 1 of the Fight Over Flight podcast.
Long time in the making.
Oh, yeah. So I'm Rob Roman, and I'm with my co-host,
Angel Quiroz.
And this is a podcast that we've been talking about for quite some time now.
Yeah.
It's really not just a podcast. I want to say it's in a complete movement. And it's going to be a movement towards helping people and providing value to people and really bringing hope back into social media and into these platforms. And this is why you and I have are doing this.
Right.
This is the real reason. So I'm just going to dive right into who I am, where I come from, and you do the same, and then we'll kind of dive into deep on why we're doing this.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because I know that there's a lot that you've dealt with in your life that you've overcome, but I've never heard the full story.
Yep.
So I think it's a good time to hear it right here and now. So.
Yep. So right now, I'll tell you who I am. My name is Rob Roman. I'm currently a sergeant for a police department in New Jersey. I'm also on our regional SWAT team. Something I've always enjoyed, something I love to do. Before that, I went to NJCU, that's New Jersey City University.
Right.
Played 3 years of collegiate baseball. I was a captain for 2 of those years.
That was big for you, right?
Yeah, that was big. So,
yeah.
and then when we get into the story, you'll know why. Why that was big. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. Family's very important to me. I have a beautiful fiance. I have an amazing dog. Yeah, you know my dog.
I know your dog.
Yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, _Rob Roman, then you'll know.
The next step is getting your dog an Instagram. That's, That's the play.
No, he's got one.
He's got one?
He's got one.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He's got one.
Okay, I gotta follow.
Life of Logan.
Life of Logan. That's a great name, actually.
All right, but yeah, so that's who I am. I mean, I'm in the service business. I love the service business. I've been wanting to do it my entire life. What made me want to get into law enforcement was 9/11. Oh, wow. Yeah, 9/11, I was in 5th grade. When that happened, my mom was on her way to the towers to go to work. And that completely shifted my life. That completely shifted the world, but I don't really remember anything pre-9/11. So that shifted me into saying, all right, I know I want to get into law enforcement. I know I want to get in the service business, and I know this is what I want to do because of all those heroes.
How old were you in 9/11?
5th grade, so about 12 years old.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that feeling of just kind of waking up and going to school like a normal day, and halfway through the day,
yep,
like the country's not the same anymore. I could imagine that would kind of instill in somebody like, yo, I want to do something honorable. I want to change. I want to keep people safe.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I grew up in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is right across the river from the towers.
Right.
So I remember being in 5th grade and seeing the smoke. I mean, my mom picked me up late because she was over there. Wow. I was probably one of the last students to leave, and I just remember that day, the next day, the entire week, the cloud of smoke, and looking on the news and seeing law enforcement officers and firefighters and EMS running towards all this smoke. And I didn't understand it then, but as I got older, I realized that they were just as scared and just as fearful as everyone else that was running away from the towers.
Right.
But they knew that this is what I signed up for and this is my duty.
That's crazy.
And that right there was like, all right,
it hit something.
This is something special because
and this is you're like 13 at this point.
Oh yeah, this is something like special. Like they're doing this and with no regard for their life because they're giving their life for service.
Right.
So I knew that I wanted to serve, and this was my way. So before I dive into the core of why we've begun this podcast and why and the struggles that I've been through and the trauma that I went through, let's kind of get into who you are now. Let the listeners know, and then we'll dive super, super deep.
Yeah. So my name's Angel Quiroz. I'm like you, first and foremost a Christian, but I've been doing digital marketing and social media for 5-6 years now. When I went to school for graphic design, I kind of got classically trained in that, and that's what kind of opened up the, Pandora's box of digital marketing, if you will. Before that, I was really into drugs. I was really into drinking all the time. I had a lot of friends that were doing the same thing, playing in bands. I play guitar, so I was playing in bands, bar bands and stuff like that. A lot of my friends, they're not here anymore, So I got kind of a first-hand look at how the wrong mentality or the wrong choices in life can really just drastically affect you. Just completely change the course of your life if you make one horrible decision. So that kind of got me thinking about things differently, especially in church. Like, I don't consider myself somebody that thinks like religiously. I just consider myself somebody that sees things for what they are, like the truth of the matter. This is kind of what it is and what it isn't. Because of that, I kind of have a rift between myself and the church, and it's nothing crazy. Like, I attend church. We go to the same church. Yep. That's how we met. But it's just the idea of it overall. My biggest struggle, I think, was getting diagnosed with epilepsy at 16. So I'll go into some of the details, but then we'll flesh it out as, during the course of this podcast. But 16 years old, I'm walking around with my friend. It's summertime. It's probably like this time of year. And I go into some store, like 7-Eleven, and I go to reach for a cold drink, and I start getting giggly. And my friend's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I faint. Boom. And I wake up, and I'm sitting on the curb outside. Don't know how I got outside. And ambulance person is like this sweet lady, and she's just rubbing my hand. "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." They have no idea what's wrong with me. Fast forward, I end up being diagnosed with epilepsy at 17. I have to take medication twice a day, a lot of medication, and it just kind of changed the way I looked at life, because I had to live a certain way in order to survive.
Now, this was at 17?
17. So this was like, I'm coming into my adolescence. I'm trying to figure out my life, who I am, my identity, and this happens to me and kind of forms, I guess, a real mature perspective of the way things are. Comparatively to other people that have, gone through horrible things, it's not really that serious. But at any given moment, or so I thought, I could just fall and wake up in the hospital.
But it is serious. So this is, that's your why, right?
Right.
To this podcast.
Right.
So for the listeners, we kind of just went over the title, but the title is extremely meaningful, where it's fight over flight.
Yeah.
Right. And you saying, other people going through other things in their life, and, it may not be that serious, but it is that serious, because to you, it's your world, and your world was rocked, and you couldn't, do things that you were doing the day before you had epilepsy. Right. So your world is completely changed, and it's completely shifted. So, and that's the whole purpose of fight over flight. And that's the whole purpose of this. So my story is, I had everything going for me in my mind, right? So I was in high school. I played sports. I got good grades. I was, one of the popular kids, you would say, right? Yeah. I mean, I didn't like bully anyone or anything. So I was like sports, and went to parties and did things, and I was fun and had a good time. And I was going to play college baseball, and I was going to go really to a couple different places that I wanted to go.
You had the checklist on point.
It was on point. Yeah. Like, I was 18 years old, getting ready to graduate high school, and saying, wow, this was an amazing time. What's next? Right? Like, what's next? And then 2 days after I graduated high school, I got this vertigo attack. Oh, wow. Now, if you don't know what vertigo is it's an imbalance in the inner ear where you start to get dizzy. And there's different levels of vertigo, where you could be dizzy for a couple minutes, a couple seconds, some people hours. And I had that. So I had the hours. Wow. Now, the vertigo is like, if think about being on a boat, the room is spinning, and you're in a hurricane. Like, that's like, yeah, that's like what vertigo is. So I experienced it for a couple of days, and I thought maybe I have a bug, or maybe there's something going on. So I didn't really think much of it. Now it's continuing over the summer. So I graduated high school in June, whatever date it was in June. 2 days later, get this vertigo attack. Now I'm getting vertigo attacks 2 to 3 times a week. Wow. And it's happening in the middle of the night, where the room is spinning. It's lasting hours. I'm vomiting, and my mother has to now drive me to the hospital, where they have to drug me up so I'm no longer dizzy. Wow. Now, I don't know what's going on. Now, I'm going to fast forward the entire process. So now this goes on for 2 or 3 times a week for about a year and a half. So about 18 months, I'm getting dizzy, I'm getting vertigo, I'm throwing up, I'm being hospitalized. Weekly, with the great support of my mother, is taking me to doctor visits. Right. They thought I had a brain tumor. They thought I had Lyme disease. They thought I had all these different things that were going on.
They probably could have thought you had epilepsy at one point.
Epilepsy. I mean, it was literally everything you could think of. And I went to ear specialists. I went to ENTs. I went to neurologists. I went to all these specialists, but none of them could figure it out. So what was actually more frustrating than getting dizzy for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, vomiting, and going to the hospital was, what's next? Right. Like, you're professional doctors. What is next? Right. Like, you don't even know what's going on with me, So forget about a cure.
It's so funny you say that because it's so similar to epilepsy. Like you're talking to people who have dedicated their lives to figuring out epilepsy, and they're telling me there's no cure for it. Some people grow out of it at 28. Some people grow out of it at 16. Like you're telling me there's no, like anywhere in the world, nobody has discovered why this happens or how to get rid of it. It's a helpless feeling.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that we could put people in space, but you can't figure that out.
Right.
So, I mean, I still don't understand how I can talk to someone on the phone in China and they can hear what I'm saying.
Right, or FaceTime them.
Right, or FaceTime them, exactly. But, so now, I mean, I'm left with this choice. I mean, I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, because this is about 18 months. I can't play baseball for any school I wanted to go to. I can't go to the colleges I want. I had to go to community college, and I had to live with my grandfather.
Right, because he had to be close to home just in case something happened.
Right, and my mom had to work. So I went to community college. My grandfather had to drive me to school every day.
Wow.
Had to pick me up from school because I wasn't allowed to drive. I'm like 18 years old thinking I'm going to live like, and it's just one day.
Yeah.
And it's gone. And, of course, I fell into a depression. I was pissed off. I was blaming God. I was blaming everyone else. I was in self-pity. And just over and over and over again.
Yeah, you're in a downward spiral.
And it's just snowballing.
Yeah.
And it's just snowballing. But, you know, my mother huge credit to my parents. My mother and father are separated, but they are like best friends. And they supported me. My grandfather, you know, may he rest in peace, supported me. My grandmother supported me, and they helped me get through. But I knew I still wanted to go to school because I didn't want this to take everything away from me. It took away friends. It took away my opportunities. It took away my entire life. I had 90% hearing loss. Now remember, I wanted to be in law enforcement my entire life.
Right.
I can't pass the hearing test with 90% hearing loss. How are you going to give me a gun? How are you going to put me in to work to back people up when I'm getting vertigo 3-4 days a week?
Right.
It's impossible. So now that everything's wiped, gone. So, but then my mother gives me 6 months, and she goes, "Okay, look, I want you to listen to this guy, and his name is Tony Robbins, and I want you to read his book, and I want you to listen to him speak on YouTube, and I want you to follow him." And I'm telling you, I dove deep into this man, Tony Robbins. Like, I dove deep into his words, into his words on paper, into what he said on YouTube, into everything. Every interview he ever had, I listened to. And he got me out of this, out of this rut. And what it was is that really what got me out of the rut was, so I was hopeless for almost 2 years, right? So when you're hopeless, even though I had a support system, my parents, my grandparents, they didn't know what I was going through.
Right.
They couldn't say, hey, you know, whatever advice they gave me, I was still an 18-year-old kid, a 19-year-old kid that career was gone, that his hobbies were gone, and I didn't even know what was the next day. So I didn't look forward to it. I didn't care about the next day.
Right.
I didn't care about it. I had no hope. And
it's alienating.
It's alienating.
You're alone. Nobody can relate. Quote
no
unquote.
one.
Yeah.
And which is false, right? And that's why that's why we started this.
Right. That's a poisonous mentality.
100%.
Right.
So now I get out of this because I hear him, and he's talking to me. And at this point is when I meet God as well. I start praying to God, and I say, God, like, I need your help. I've been to specialist after specialist after specialist, and no one's been able to help me. Can you help me? And I kid you not, a couple weeks later, we find a ENT specialist, Dr. Cho, who was out of Hackensack in New Jersey, Hackensack Hospital.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Dr. Wan Tak Cho. And he says, hey, I think you have this thing called Meniere's disease. Now, less than 1% of the population has it, but I think you may have it. So I said, okay, well, now it's looking better, right?
Right. Now there's at least a theory.
Now there's a theory.
Yeah.
So he gives me steroid injections into my inner ear. So he takes a big needle, he pokes inside the inner ear, and he shoots these steroid injections once a week for a month. They last for like 6 months. I actually go to NJCU, New Jersey City University. They're the only ones that would give me a shot to play baseball.
Wow.
They would only want, because, hey, I'm 2 years out of high school. No matter how good I was, I'm 2 years out. No one wants to take a chance on me. So now I go play, and I do well. I make all rookie team in the state of New Jersey. Wow. I start as a second baseman, one of the only freshmen to start, and I have a great year. 6 months go by. I'm walking home from the gym one day, and I pass out. Now, this has never happened to me before.
Wow.
Never, right? Because most of my vertigo attacks happen at night.
Right.
I'm walking from the gym. As I'm walking, there's a lady in front of me, and she disappears. And I kind of like was, what happened? She reappeared, disappeared, and then it went out. And then when I went out, when I came to, the ground was like in front of my face. So when I saw the ground, I just tucked and I landed on my head, and I needed 7 staples in my head. Oh. So we called the doctor as I'm in the hospital, and he says that's called a drop attack. That's the last straw. The injections didn't work. We need to do surgery. So long story short, he does the surgery. He puts a shunt in my head. It's past my inner ear, the shunt, because the fluid was shifting and hitting a part of my head that was causing these vertigo attacks. So now the fluid actually goes to a different part of my head. Since August 20th of 2011, I have not had a vertigo attack since that surgery. My hearing went up completely. I have like 5% hearing loss or something. Wow. I was able to play 3 years of college baseball. I was able to enjoy time with friends. I was able to drive again. Right. I was able to become a police officer. I won the Defensive Tactics Award in the police academy out of 80 recruits. I became the fastest person to reach the rank of detective in my department. After 1 year as a police officer, I became detective. And then I became the fastest to reach the rank of sergeant in my department. 4.5 years, I became a sergeant, which just happened about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I'm the youngest on the Hudson County SWAT team. And I owe all of that to 2 things. One, God, because as soon as I started bringing God into my life, God started opening doors. Right. It's kind of like God's knocking on the door, and if you don't open it, he won't come in. Right. That's how I believe. I believe he's just like a graceful God, and he doesn't want to interrupt, and he doesn't want to go in there. He wants you to open it and say, hey, God, you can come into my life, and then you'll start seeing things being moved. So that was one. And then 2, I give a lot of credit to Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is now a reason why we're starting this. Right. And why is that? Because there was no podcast in 2009 and 2010, yeah, right? That's true. So I couldn't just put on headphones and say, oh, watch a YouTube video and see who's going through this, right? YouTube was like almost just basically brand new. So this is where this was born. This podcast idea, so we met, so the listeners know, we met in church. Yeah. House of Worship in Garfield, New Jersey. We met there, and we became friends instantly. We actually started a project talking about social media, right? Yeah. We started a social media project that completely failed. Yeah. Really not because of you, because I kind of just wanted to dive into that social media world. It's buzzing. It's buzzing right now. Buzzing. Yeah. And there's a lot out there, but that's your world, and you're actually crushing it in that world, and you're making pretty big moves right now. Appreciate it. But so since we met, I've been trying to do something for the past 2 or 3 years. Yeah. I've been trying to do something more than just law enforcement. Now, I love law enforcement. I love my career. I love the service, but I want to do more. Right. And I was struggling with it. And it was social media marketing. Right. What was it that you wanted to do? What did I want to do? Right. I just knew I wanted to help people. Right. And what's interesting to me, and I'll let you finish, but Beyonce had the greatest album of all time. No, I'm just kidding. No, the interesting part to me is that out of everything that's happened to you, the mindset had to shift because of one thing, and that was another kind of spiral that you had to go through. Could you maybe, like, I guess, enlighten us about where your mindset was during that whole process? So, like, you fall, you hit your head, they tell you that you need surgery now. Yep. Where does your mind go right at that moment? Oh, I need surgery. Like, let's do it as fast as possible. Really? Because that can be like, so there's an operation for epilepsy where they literally have to cut your skull open. They have to peel back pieces of your brain, and then they have to surgically rewire two I forget what they are, but 2 things in your brain in order for the epilepsy to go away, and they almost coat it. So because what epilepsy is one of the things in your brain, your wiring is mismatched, and so there's raw electricity shooting into your brain essentially from every movement that you're doing. So they told me that years ago, but I haven't been able to get myself to the place where I'm like, okay, I want to take a year off of everything in life and take this surgery. So what was it in your mind that was like, let's do this right away? Okay, so first of all, that surgery sounds crazy. Yeah. But so I'll tell you this, because so when I got vertigo, I was hopeless. When I got Meniere's disease, I was hopeless. For a year and a half, my life was over. I have no life. I have to try to figure out what my life is going to be. Then I get it back after these steroid injections for 6 months. And I'm starting to enjoy, like, driving in traffic.
Right.
Like, who enjoys that? No one.
People who have had epilepsy and now they're driving again, they enjoy
exactly.
it.
Right? So you understand. Like, so anyone out there that's struggling right now with a disease, with a physical trauma, with mental illness, you understand that when you go through it,
right,
the day-to-day activities become meaningful.
So do you think it was finding joy in the mundane?
100%. It was the appreciation. I appreciated everything.
Do you think that was intentional, or do you think that's something subconscious that, like, just luckily that happened?
Well, I just think that when you're going through, when life is going well, and then out of nowhere, something disrupts that. It completely takes you to your own hell on earth. And then there's the light out. And then when you get out, everything seems amazing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, the way I look at it is that when something critical, crucial, horrible happens to myself or pretty much to yourself, you have two options. The first option is you can kind of let yourself go and go whatever way life is going to take you, like a roller coaster, and just be affected by it for the worse. Or you can kind of decide to take ownership of every little fiber of it and say, okay, I have epilepsy. I don't know what caused it, but it doesn't matter. I have to get to a place where my mindset is healthy again so that the rest of me can be healthy.
Well, right. So that mindset shift didn't come till after the surgery.
Okay.
So to kind of go through it, right? I'm in my own hell, and then I get these steroid injections, and now I am living like I'm playing baseball. I'm enjoying life, right? But it's kind of like this false thing because I don't know what's gonna happen next.
It's like an impending doom. Like at any moment, something can happen.
100%. So now I get this drop attack. Boom. We have to do surgery. I said we have to do surgery right away because I need my life back.
Right.
Because I just got it for 6 months. I need this back, so let's do it. So we get the surgery, and then the doctor tells me, this is the point. This is the point where I think that every listener that has struggled is gonna see this, and it's the point you just made. So the surgery happens, right? After that, the doctor goes, okay, you have two choices. You can. So the surgery happens, and the doctor says, okay, you can't put your head below your chest for at least a month.
Wow.
Because you're gonna fall. You cannot do any physical activity for about 3 months, and you can't do any strenuous activity for about 6 months. So now I'm like, what do you mean? I have fall ball. Baseball's baseball's a month away. This is August. Baseball's in September. He goes, I'm telling you. He goes, but you have two options, and this is like the critical options. It's you have option A. You can fight through this. It's going to feel like sometimes you're walking in quicksand. It's going to feel rough. It's going to feel like you just want to give up, and you're going to want to give up every day.
Right.
Like, this is your opportunity to, you're going to have to break through. This is going to be worse than you've ever dealt with because you're going to feel vertigo. You can't do certain things, and you're going to have to fight through it. And that's A. Or B, you could be pissed off. You can suffer. You can never do anything you ever want to do. You can blame the world. You can blame the surgery. You can just be miserable. And at the end of that, you may want to take your life.
Right.
And a doctor's telling me this.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm already prepared for this now. Right. I have God. I'm listening to Tony Robbins. I'm motivated. I see the light at the end of the tunnel because I did it for 6 months. I said, all right, nothing is going to defeat me. So no physical activity for, I think it was like 2 or 3 months. I was back playing baseball within 2 or 3 months. And that's strenuous activity where I said 6 months because every day I was working towards it. Right. Every day I said, no, I have hope. And hope is the key word because I have hope. I know there's something on that other side of that pain. I know when I get out of the mud, I'm going to be able to run faster. I know when I climb over the hill, the downhill is going to be easier. I know this, like, because I've been there. I've heard other people go through it. This is it. Like this is not going to defeat me. Right. Meniere's disease is not going to defeat me. It's not going to define me. It's not going to be who I am. So I'm going to defeat it. So,
right. That's a big thing.
That conscious shift. So what? And that conscious shift is why we're starting this podcast.
Right.
So if you're a listener right now and you have had a physical injury that completely changed your life, maybe a car accident or, you know, something traumatic happened to you.
Yeah, even mentally, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the physical side. I mean, there's a few aspects. So that's the physical side. If that's happened to you, you need to tune in.
Yeah.
You need to tune into this podcast. If you have a disease, if you suffering from a disease, you know, whether it's cancer, whether it's Meniere's disease, whether it's epilepsy, whatever it is, you need to tune in.
Right.
And if you have mental illness, whether you're suffering from anxiety, depression, anger, fear, you need to tune in because this is the purpose of fight over flight. It's not fight or flight response. Right. Not in our world.
Right.
In our world,
there's no choice but
there
to
is
fight.
no choice.
Yep.
You know, in the scientific world, there's a fight or flight response. Not in our world.
Right. In
our world, we're going to fight and we're not going to take flight. In our world, our listeners are going to fight and we're going to build a community around it because if there's one thing I wish I had when I was going through my Meniere's disease, it's a podcast that I could have listened to, that I could have tuned in every week and said, wow, those guys know what I'm going through. Right. Wow, they're interviewing someone that has been through something similar or worse. Right. And that person got out of it. Right. So all that right there, I mean, that's the purpose of this. Like, you and I are going to be interviewing people that have gone through it. Yeah. And not to sound morbid or anything, but if you haven't gone through it and you're listening to this podcast,
you just might.
No, you are.
Yeah, you just might.
No. It's not you just might. Like, you are. Because, you know, I'm a very positive person. If anyone knows who I am.
I know.
If anyone knows who I am, you know I am very positive. I'm optimistic. I'm full of joy. And it's because my anchor, as Dwayne The Rock Johnson likes to say, his anchor, right? His anchor is the weight room. Uh-huh. So my anchor is Meniere's disease. My anchor is I had no life. Right. And now I'm living the life that I want. And of course I struggle and I have problems and I go through it, but I always go back to the anchor. Right. On why I'm doing what I do, right. On the amazing possibilities that I have now, right?
I think that's one thing everybody who's been through something extreme has in common is that ability to shift their perspective very quickly. If you overcome something and if you've gone through something and have succeeded in overcoming it, you have the ability to say, in comparison to this life or death situation, the thing that I'm going through right now is not that bad. It is hardly anything. You know, if there's people that, you know, sometimes can't afford things or they're having a little trouble in their relationships, like in comparison to a life or death scenario where your life is actually on the line, you might not make it, those things are fleeting. And I think that gives hope because you can kind of put things in perspective and say, I'm going to align my actions not by emotion, but by the practicality that this isn't anywhere near as difficult as what I went through before. And if I can make it through that, I can make it through today.
100%. And I mean, you couldn't have said it any better because that's true. And to get back to the point where everyone's going to go through it is that so life is ups and right. There's no like track to life.
Like Jordan Peterson says, life is suffering.
Oh yeah,
you know. Life,
so yeah, and there's no track in life. I mean, we all are running in the hills. We're climbing mountains. We're running in the mud. Then we're running like in the beautiful 75 and sunny, and it's amazing. And then guess what? The clouds are coming, and it's gonna rain, and it's gonna pour, and it's gonna thunder. Like that's gonna happen in everyone's life. So when I say these traumatic experiences are gonna happen to you, they will. You may not get an illness, you may not get an injury, but you may know someone that very close to you does.
Yeah, and I think more often than not people do. And I think this is a great way to prepare people as well because the only thing worse than being caught off guard by something like that is not being able to recuperate when something like that happens and not having the tools to be able to do it. So like thinking about these things ahead of time, thinking about things that could possibly tragically happen to you, not in like a morbid or a gruesome sense, but in the sense of like, if something like this were to happen, I know I can handle myself, and I know that this is the mentality I have to go to. I think that's such a useful tool.
Everyone listening, this is why Angel is the co-host. I mean, come on. This is not scripted, people.
Yeah, no.
This is not scripted because exactly what I was going to say is that, yes, I'm saying trauma is going to happen, whether it's to you or to someone you love, but it's an optimistic view because, like you just said, the whole purpose of this podcast, and I keep saying podcast, but I just want it's a movement. Like this fight over flight is an entire movement of people that are going to get together. You and I, we're going to interview people, the listeners.
Right.
We're going to create groups with each other.
My homie Mute.
Oh, nah, Mute. Shout out to Mute. Wouldn't even be happening if it wasn't for him.
That's right.
This is a movement, and it's a movement knowing that no matter what trauma comes our way, we're going to enjoy the moments of life.
Right.
Because the moments of life are what's so important.
Right.
So it's funny because I was talking to my mother yesterday. So my mother is a colon cancer survivor.
Wow.
My mother had colon cancer twice. She has 13 inches of her colon removed. Wow. I mean, the colon cancer surgery was like the easy part.
Right.
It was the after effects every day. Some days she's in the bathroom 20 hours a day. I mean, it's like really bad. She had to get a temporary colostomy bag, which is if you're anyone, you don't want that.
Yeah.
She's young. She's 53 years old. Wow. She got it when she was like 50. The cancer kept coming back. And we're just talking about this the other day because she's doing amazing. She's cancer free. She wasn't going out because she was so deep into depression and anxiety that she wouldn't even want to walk out of the door. But now she's doing physical therapy. She's planning vacations. She's never been anywhere. She's planning vacations. She's doing things. She's enjoying the days she has because the doctors have told her, like, hey, you have a rare form of colon cancer. It's probably going to come back.
Wow.
And you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, and it's funny how
that's crazy.
general person's perspective on something like that can be so gruesome or just dim. But the people who actually have it, like my sister has breast cancer. She's had it twice. Their perspective isn't as dim as we would think. You know, they're looking at the subtle little things in life, and they're making those out to be the most important because at the end of the day, they are. You know, it's not necessarily anything like lavish or extreme that's important. It's face-to-face communication with people you care about. It's the places you want to visit. It's those things. And if you have those things, then your life is fulfilled. And I think that is such a vital part of this whole movement, is understanding that fulfillment isn't necessarily a career or it's not necessarily money, but it's your mindset and the way you interact with those people around you. I think for me, it took me so long to learn that because I came from, like, my parents were both not rich people, so we had very little growing up. So I came from kind of a scarcity mentality growing up where it's like, you can't buy that, can't do this, can't do that, no spending on here, no spending on there. So growing up, I had to kind of find, okay, how do I live out of abundance? And especially with the epilepsy thing, I had to find, okay, how do I have an abundant mentality about life, that life is more than good, and I can benefit from that. And I think that's the struggle, and that's the thing that I really want to highlight.
100%. I mean, yeah, like I don't, my parents come from lower, I wouldn't even say middle class, like lower class, in income wise, but what you just said is so important, and I want every listener to hear this, and it's the key of the movement, that our careers really don't matter.
Right.
Money doesn't matter. Power, prestige, none of that really matters. Unless it's everything to you in the world, then it matters. But but in general terms, I mean, we know that, going through what we've gone through, like every day that we get to spend with loved ones, every day that we get to do things we enjoy, every day that we get to help people, we get to serve, we get to really enjoy this beautiful life on this earth. That's like the blessing. Right. That's like the blessing. And, it's hard for me to really explain how amazing this world can be.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it can go from a surviving mentality where you're just trying to survive to a mentality where you're thriving, and that's the hard transition. I always used to wonder how people could look at life so optimistically, and I think it's just that little nugget, that little kind of binary switch of like, I don't just want to survive every day. I want to actually have something fulfilling in life.
I agree. And that, we're this is episode 1, so we really want people listening in to know why we're doing this. Right. And we want them to know the purpose behind it, and we want them to know what got us here, right? Yeah. And what got us here is, one, I would say, is God. 2 is gratitude, and 3 is our love for serving other people, because we want to help people. Like, our listener needs to know that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. They're not alone. They have us. They have the other communities that hopefully we can bring together, that they can see, like, hey, because I thought I was alone. You thought you were alone. I would imagine.
Yeah, big
like,
time.
you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like, this world has a ton of people that are struggling. Yeah. This world has a ton of people that are like down in the ditch, that are just trying to survive. That's why suicide rates in different professions are going crazy. Yeah. I mean, they're trying to survive on their own, and they're scared to be open about it. And that's my vision for this is they can hear us and they can say, wow, like, these are 2 successful men that have gone through it, that are still learning life, that are still enjoying it, that are like really, and that are prepared, and that are preparing me as the listener for what's next, and are preparing me for like a life that I could truly enjoy and love. Like 99%, and this is just a number that I'm making up, but this is like a number in my head.
It's a fluff number.
This is a number that in my head I believe is true. Okay. 99% of what goes on in the media is 1% of what goes on in the world.
Oh yeah.
Because like the media loves destruction, it loves corruption, it loves like danger, like, you're never gonna watch the news and see, oh, like, this person had a birthday and the family gathered together and they ate barbecue food and they loved it and had an amazing night. No, you're gonna hear about the 5-alarm fire that happened in New York. So I want us to be able to provide real value to people, to say, like, look, that's not the world. Yeah. Like, that goes on in the world and that's gonna happen in the world, but you're prepared to handle that. Like, if that's your fire, you're prepared for it. Right. And you don't got to do it alone. Right. Like, that's never have to meet us.
And to your point, that's one of my biggest, I guess, struggles to overcome. It's like, I want to be able to live a life where I'm abundantly helping other people, but at the same time, I'm prepared to help myself and the people around me if it comes down to it. And being prepared for that isn't an easy thing. It's a very difficult thing to get yourself to a place as a person where you can say, no matter what happens, like, my foundation is solid. Oh yeah, I can tackle this. If my house gets on fire, I have backup. Just the practicalities of life, and being able to stay optimistic within the practicality of life. And I think that's such a skill, and it's not taught. Nobody talks about it that much, but it's so vital to just being a person, being a human in this, especially in this country where we feel so like lavish and we feel like everything is comfortable. The minute our comfort decreases, we develop anxiety, we have panic attacks, and things start to happen. And those are the things that I want to be able to avoid, and I want to be able to help people avoid, because honestly, I do think that giving is a necessity. Giving help, offering what you can to the world, it comes from the core of who we are as human beings. And so people listening, the more you can help somebody, the more fulfilled your life is going to be.
Oh, 100%.
And that's another reason I feel like we're doing this. It's not because we want to help, because we think we have something that we can get. It's because we need to, because this is who we are. It's embedded in us.
100%. Like, we need to help. Yeah. We need to help people, because it's twofold, right? The more we try to help people, the more we help ourselves. Right. And the more like the listeners, like, I want them to email us. Right. I want them to DM us. I want them to comment on our stuff on Facebook, on Instagram. I want them on YouTube. I want them to reach out to us, because they have nuggets of information that are going to help us. Right. And they're going to make our lives better. Right. Because we are supposed to be a community of people. We're supposed to be individuals, but in a community where we can help people. Right. Like, it's funny, I don't really remember who said this, but the words stuck with me. I think it was actually Tony Robbins. The most selfish thing you could do is help others. Not selfless. Yeah. The most selfish thing you could do is help others, because the more you help others, the better you're going to feel. Yeah. And
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
100% true. And I just believe that, you know me, I am very warrior spirit like mentality. Like everything's like a warrior spirit type of mentality.
I vibe with it.
And that's actually like, I don't have any tattoos, but when I do get a tattoo, that's gonna be it. It's gonna be the whole warrior and like
tribal.
Not the traditional tribal. I don't want to make The Rock look bad.
Yeah, right.
So it's gonna be like the warrior, because I love like the samurai, and I believe law enforcement are the modern day warriors. And
that's dope.
One of my favorite things in the Bible is the armor of God. Right. So it's gonna be kind of like an armor of God, samurai, police officer.
That's dope.
Kind of thing, right? So I really believe that the movement that we're starting is the preparation for the battles that have yet to come. So the battles physically. So we're going to talk about training. We're going to talk about being in the gym. And we're going to talk about working out for a purpose.
Right.
Because of what that does for the battles later to come.
Yeah. And I do want to wind it down, but I want to say to that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I've been struggling with is I think where I've messed up as far as my physical health is not finding the right purpose for it. And just kind of saying I have to go to the gym because I have to go to the gym, and I have to work out because I have to work out because I don't want to look like this.
Yep.
I think the missing link is that just like, all right, what's my purpose for going there every day?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So and then that's like with everything. So like the gym, it's boring when you're just trying to prepare for the summer, and the gym is boring when you're like, oh, like I just got to do this because I know it's healthy. No. When you're training because you may have to, you may be like hanging off a cliff one day.
Right.
And if you can't pull yourself up, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's like serious stuff.
It's true.
I mean,
That's
you
true.
can be walking down the street and you need to be able to handle yourself. So you need to train physically. Mentally, you need to prepare for the battles that have yet to come. When anxiety knocks at your door, when fear knocks at your door, when depression knocks at your door, you need to be prepared for it.
Right.
And that's what we're hoping we can do. So we have the physical realm, we have the mental realm, we have the spiritual realm, where we know, listen, if the listeners, they're not Christian and they don't believe in God, hey, cool. Yeah. Like, we welcome you. Yeah. We still welcome. We don't care. But for us to defeat the spiritual realm, it's our God. It's Jesus Christ, right? So these are battle. Like, you may be loving, like you may be listening and say, I'm just listening because I'm trying to support Angel and Rob,
right?
And like,
which is pretty likely.
Yeah, right. Like, we're just like listening to them, and you may be like, my life is going amazing, but you're preparing for the battles that have yet to come, and you're doing that by building a community, finding your true purpose in life, and realizing that you're not broken because it's just who you are. Like, just because things are not going right and you didn't get the promotion you wanted, you got fired, you broke up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, you're not as gifted as other people, like, you're not broken. Yeah. It's just the same thing that's going on with everyone else in the world. And especially, and I'm going to say this, men struggle with this more than anyone else.
Yeah,
where
I agree.
Men are scared to be vulnerable.
Maybe that's what we'll talk about entirely for the next time that it's me and you co-host. Let's say.
Oh yeah.
Just the idea of manhood and what men struggle with, because I think people shy away from that big time because it seems to be a divisive topic for some reason. Oh, yeah. Like, there's 3 men in this room right now. Yeah. We should be talking about the things that are important to us. So episode 2 will be manhood. We'll be labeled. And this is actually what God does for me. So episode 2 we can do is my vulnerabilities are my strength. Love that. I love that.
And
I think that's a great way to freaking tie this up in a nice bow, man.
Yeah, man. So thank you everyone who have listened. Please join us on this movement. Join us on this journey. We really want you to tune in. We want you to reach out to us. Tell us if you've gone through something. Give us your story.
Yeah. Drop your story in the comments. That'd be so amazing.
Comments, emails, anything. Like, reach out to us. Tell us your story. Tell us if you're going through it, if you defeated it. Tell us if you're preparing for a future battle, or if you know someone, or just really engage with us, because we really, the purpose of this is for the listener, and we really want you to know that we're here for you. We're trying to build something for you. Yeah. We're trying to learn just as much as we're trying to teach. Yeah. So please, tune in. Join us on this movement. Reach out to us, and we're here for you. Like, we're just here for you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Like, share, subscribe, comment.
Yes. Like, share, subscribe, comment.
Have a good night.